I know one of the things that districts always ask about is both that managing a separate set of usernames and passwords, but also access control. This is really important. So maybe you can help illustrate for us access control, how it is that we allow for different patrons, different stakeholders, different users to access VIZOR and control their experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So firstly, on single sign-on, so your Google accounts, which is typically the case with school districts, so we can utilize those. So you don't need to create separate accounts to use VIZOR. You already have Google accounts for your staff, for your students, and you can utilize those. Likewise for Microsoft accounts. So we have schools where maybe staff are using Microsoft accounts and students using Google accounts. So either Microsoft or Google there. You mentioned a great example there in terms of login experience and using roles. And one of the questions we get asked a lot with VIZOR is, well, can an IT administrator in a school or a principal of a school log into VIZOR and just see assets which are associated, allocated to their school? So I was going to start there. So I'm going to log in as a principal in a school. So, and what we have is a home page, so we can see for this, so Belinda, we'll say they're a head teacher at school. They've got 74 Lenovo's and they've got 5 Dells. None of the Chromebooks are sort of in a repair state. And over on this functional area, then we can see that the functionality sort of Belinda has is being limited. So they can see their Chromebooks and they can submit tickets, but they can't see repairs or charges, and they can't see other schools. So I'm going to log out of Belinda now.
So to be clear, what we just did there, Dean, you logged in as a principal of a specific school.
Yep.
And that principal then was limited in terms of what they can see. And now we're going to be logging in as somebody that's got a more complete view, a higher level view with more assets and things like. So you can control the types of assets that people see. You can control the locations of those assets so that they can see only assets in a specific location or specific types of assets. So you're controlling the areas they have access to, the records they have access to, and then the data within those records as well. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly that. And the functionality, so what they can do against those assets. So you may have somebody who's a media specialist, which can just do check in, check out, or somebody who's like frontline support, who's dealing with those incidents and those repair tickets coming in. So what I'll do is I'll log in now as Robert Green, who says a tech director at district. And what we can see is that there's more Chromebooks for a start. So we can see there's, instead of those 74 Lenovo's, we've got 164 because we're running across the entire district. And we've got some Chromebooks which are out for repair, again, because we're not just looking at a particular school, as Belinda was before.
Right.
We're looking across the entire district. So there's an example of one login restricted Belinda's to a school, and you could open any of the reports and the reports would just be restricted and to that particular school. All of the assets you see are just for that school. And now we're looking at a district level, looking across multiple schools. And in fact, on the left hand side here, we've now got the schools, classrooms, locations, we've got repairs, we've got charges and fees. And so we've got that additional functionality this user has as well.
So different areas they have access to. Cool.
Yeah.
And I think what's important here too is to be able to illustrate for different districts the ability to kind of create your own experience on your homepage if you have access to this feature.
Yeah, so each user can go in here and they can add and remove widgets, these are KPIs, based on what they want to see. So, and it's also based on what functionality they have access to. So if somebody is dealing with, say, just repair tickets, then they may have widgets, like just the repair widgets on here. But each user can add and remove these. You can add as many as you like, so you're not restricted to 4. You can, in fact, remove this quick links area. So some schools remove the quick links area, have VIZOR on a overhead sort of display, and it's just sort of giving you an at a glance sort of dashboard of your IT environment across the entire district. And a nice little feature I always like to point out is there's little drill downs here, so you can click on the headings and that will show you the sort of 77 Chromebooks which are in storage, or the other assets which are out for repair as well. So again, as Jeff mentioned before, we focus on Chromebooks, but it's not just Chromebook. You can manage other asset types within VIZOR too. Yeah, maybe while we're here, so
Yeah.
the status report. So we spent a fair amount of time just talking about the sort of life cycle and the status of the device.
Oh,
And
sure. Yeah, being able to see where they are, where assets are in their status, in their life cycle. Great.
yeah, exactly. So this gives us a chance to see an overview of those. So I can open this status report, and again, lots of different parameters. So I can filter this by like just Chromebooks, by manufacturer, locations, departments. But I'm just going to open this, using the default first. And what we get, I'll just make this a little tad bigger again. At the top, so we can see the majority of our assets are assigned, and then we have in storage and repair state. We can see assets which aren't in any particular location, so we get a breakdown of those. But then we get a breakdown of for each school, how many assets each of those schools have in that particular state. And again, you can filter this by Chromebook. So I could just say, right, I want to see the status of my Chromebooks in each of the schools, and this gives you a nice at a glance report, so school by school, how many assets they have or how many Chromebooks they have and what life cycle status they are for each of those at each of those statuses.
So you have the ability then to do this at the district level, so you can see all of the Chromebooks by status at the district level, but you can also see this at the school level.
Yeah, so, and in fact, if you were to, so right at the top, we logged in as Belinda. So if Belinda was to run this report, then she would just see all of the assets which are allocated for her school. So, but if somebody wanted to, the district, the tech director for a district, then they could come in here, select a particular school. So I'll just select Brown here at the top. There we go. And then we'll filter that report just for Brown Elementary. Yeah, there we go. So, but again, if someone from Brown Elementary was to log in, then this would be all they would see because they would be locked into that particular part of the data.
So any one of the reports that we have in VIZOR, this is a great place to mention that, or many of the reports have these different variables that can be set, essentially creating ad hoc or kind of refined reports based on criteria that you're looking for at any given point in time. And as I mentioned, I think this is a great place to remind anybody listening that you can subscribe to these reports or subscribe people to these reports. And so the status reports, I think, is a great one for the school level. So you can subscribe principals at all schools to these reports so that every 30 days or every 60 days or every week or whatever interval you want, you can send them those reports so that they don't have to ask you for them, that you don't have to go around and try and figure this out. You can just subscribe them to the report. So VIZOR is automatically generating and sending those reports in the format desired to those individual stakeholders or patrons or users, which is great. I think that's a really important one. Great. So we have all sorts of those different reports. That's wonderful, showing different information, different pieces of data that would be important for people at different points in time. I know that we also have a different perspective that we can show folks here, and that's the locations view. So the ability to see specific schools or specific rooms in those schools or floors or classrooms or whatever the case is. Is that something you can quickly take us through?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So again, as a sort of a district administrator, then we can come into VIZOR and we can see all these schools which are in, say, a particular sort of district here. So we can see the multiple schools. I can actually click onto a school and see a floor or a room in a school if I wanted to. Or at this level, I could click on a school and see all the assets which are in this particular school. So here we can see sort of various different sort of computers and devices which are allocated to this school. But again, I could do this at a classroom level. The nice feature is inventory audit. So I could go into maybe a storage room or a classroom, scan all the assets in that storage room. VIZOR will tell me if there's any assets missing or if there's any assets in that room and they should be elsewhere. So this is a great way of ensuring that your inventory within VIZOR is actually marrying up with what's actually out there within the real world. So what's out there in a classroom. So when you're performing your audits, then you can go in ensure that the assets in those rooms are reflected within VIZOR correctly, and VIZOR will let you know if that's not the case.